Good morning, everyone. It is a new week. For business algebra, it's going to be an easy day because 6.4 is one of the easiest sections. It involves matrices, but not row operations like the last time, just adding and subtracting and multiplying matrices by a scalar. Now, one thing to note, if you have a matrix that looks like this, oftentimes this matrix will be referred to as having a size. Now that size would be the number of rows, there are 2 rows, by the number of columns, 3 columns. So we would call this a 2 by 3 matrix. If I wanted to reference the number 2, I would reference it by calling it A11 if this were the matrix A, because it's the number in the first row and the first column. For example, 4 would be, it's in the first row, but it's the third column. Now, why is the matrix size important? To add or subtract matrices, they must be exactly the same size. Which is important because otherwise you don't have to do anything at all and you say, well, I'm done. At the bottom of page 1 on the notes, there's an example of what the addition looks like. So we're just going to go to 1 down on the front. So for 1a, it says add 5, negative 6, 8, 9, plus negative 4, 6, 8, 3. To add 2 matrices, you first check, are they the same size? These 2 are. That means your answer matrix will be the same size as the 2 you started with. You just add the components. 5 plus negative 4, or 5 minus 4, is 1. Negative 6 plus 6 is 0. 8 plus 8 is 16. 9 plus 3, it's 9 plus negative 3, is 6. That is all. 1b. We're adding 5, 8, 6, 2, 2, 3, 9, 1, 4, 2, 5. First thing you always ask yourself is, are these the same size? If they're not the same size, then you can't do anything. You say, cannot be added. So adding, pretty easy. Now the good news is subtraction is exactly the same. So let's go down to 2a. Instead of adding each piecewise component though, you are going to subtract each piecewise component. So 1 minus negative 2 would be 3. 2 minus 3 is negative 1. 3 minus 0 is 3. 0 minus 1, negative 1. Negative 1 minus negative 7, so that's negative 1 plus 7 is 6. 5 minus 2 is 3. Again, you're just adding or subtracting the ones in the same position in each of the matrices. 2b is just 3, 5 minus negative 2, 11. Now, if the whole thing is just one row, it's just called a row matrix. If it's just one column, it's just called a column matrix. So this is a row matrix, but the rules are still the same. You still just add or subtract the components. 3 minus negative 2, same spot. You add or subtract them. In this case, it's subtraction. So 3 minus negative 2 is really 3 plus 2. It's 5. 5 minus 11, negative 6. Now, if you look at 2c, those two are different sizes, so can't be subtracted. And that's the gist of adding and subtracting matrices. It's not too bad. Scalar multiplication is just as easy. So for scalar multiplication, that means that there's a number in front of your matrice, or your matrix. If you're multiplying by scalars, you just multiply all terms by that number. So what does that look like? Well, let's go to page 3, 3a. It says 12 times the matrix, -2, 1, 3, -7, 0, 2. I'm just going to take all of these numbers on the inside and multiply them by 12. It'll be -24, 36, 0, 12, -84, and 24. So also, scalar multiplication is very easy because it's just everything gets multiplied by that same number. Now I'll let you do 3b. Remember, you're multiplying by a negative. 3c, I want to revisit fractions. 3/5 times 1, 5, 9. One thing to note, while multiplying or adding or subtracting have situations where you can't do it, multiplying by a scalar is always possible. There's no situation where that won't be true. Yes, even multiplying by 0, it'll just turn it into a 0 matrix, but everything is doable when it comes to multiplying by a scalar. So what's 3/5 times 1? It's 3/5. 3/5 times 5, the two 5s are going to cancel, and that'll just be 3. 3/5 times 9, when you have a whole number, remember this is 9 over 1. You multiply the 9 into the numerator, this is 27/5. And that should be your whole 6.4 homework. Should not be bad at all. Should be a nice breath of fresh air, and we will do more on Wednesday.